Coming up today, in a show of defiance, Greeks appear to have said no to a bailout offer from Europe and the IMF and rejected continued austerity. In a major diplomatic victory for Korea, Japan is forced to acknowledge the use of Korean slave labourers at industrial sites that have been bestowed UNESCO World Heritage status. First, Korea sits in third spot in the medal standings at the Gwangju Universiade after the nation wins 2 golds in Judo. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello to our viewers around the world. It's 6 a.m. on Monday, July 6th here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. We start with the massive news out of Europe that could have ripple effects around the world. All signs from Greece's bailout referendum point to Greeks saying no to the austerity terms set by the country's international creditors. With over 80% of ballot papers counted, the no vote currently is significantly ahead at 61% compared with 39% for the yes campaign. Now, despite warnings from European officials that a no vote could risk Greece's membership in the Eurozone, celebrations have already started in Athens with flags flying and crowds cheering the news that Greeks have likely chosen to reject austerity. Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras says the apparent result is a victory for democracy. Now, German Chancellor Angela Merkel is flying to Paris on Monday for emergency talks with French President François Hollande about the result. Greek officials say regardless of the final outcome, they will resume talks with their creditors this week. Following months of negotiations, Korea and Japan have reached an agreement on Tokyo's bid to list some of its wartime industrial facilities as UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Tokyo will have some obligations to meet, and officials in Seoul are hopeful this development could lead to an improvement in Korea-Japan relations. Hwang Sang-hee reports.
The World Heritage Committee listed Tokyo's wartime industrial facilities as UNESCO sites at its 39th session in Bonn, Germany on Sunday. The listing, which follows months of negotiations between Korea and Japan, comes with a set of preconditions. Japan said it will take steps to make it known that a large number of Koreans and others were forced to work under harsh conditions in the 1940s, and to ensure the victims are remembered, such as by establishing information centers at each site. Korean Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se welcomed the outcome.
First, we maintained our principle and position that the historical truth must be reflected. Second, we avoided confrontation with Japan during the process and resolved the matter through dialogue.
Japan's 23 industrial sites include 7 coal mines and shipyards where nearly 60,000 Koreans were forced into labor in the 1940s during its colonial rule of Korea. Tokyo had initially marked them as being operational from 1850 to 1910. Japan is expected to follow up on its plans by submitting a progress report to the World Heritage Center by December 2017, which will be reviewed at the 42nd session of the World Heritage Committee in 2018. If Japan's progress is deemed unsatisfactory, the sites could be removed from the UNESCO list. With Seoul and Tokyo mired in disputes over history, officials at Seoul's foreign ministry expressed the hope that the agreement on Japan's UNESCO bid will break the ice between the two neighbors and generate momentum for their future relations. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
Now, following UNESCO's recognition of Japan's wartime industrial facilities as World Heritage Sites, China has voiced its concern about the move, demanding a clear account of their historical background. Officials from the Chinese delegation who are taking part in the ongoing meeting of the World Heritage Committee in the German city of Bonn released a statement after the committee's decision to include the facilities on the UNESCO list. The statement said that although Japan acknowledged the use of forced labour from Korea and other countries in the 1940s, it still fails to provide sufficient information on the issue. The Chinese delegation urged Japan to face up to history and take concrete action to give general historical facts about the facilities as recommended by the Committee on Monuments and Sites and the World Heritage Committee. Back here in Korea, and lawmakers at the National Assembly are set to open a plenary session this Monday to reconsider a controversial revision to the National Assembly Act, which would give Parliament greater influence over presidential and other administrative ordinances. However, the bill is highly likely to be automatically scrapped, even if it is put to a revote, as the ruling Saenuri Party, which has a majority in the Assembly, says it will not take part in the ballot. This is in line with President Park Geun-hye's veto of the bill late last month. The main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy is strongly criticising the ruling party and urging them to take part in the reconsideration process. That said, the NPAD has promised to work with the ruling party in addressing other pending issues during the session, regardless of the outcome of the revote. Turning now to the latest on the outbreak of Middle East respiratory syndrome here in Korea, and one more case was confirmed on Sunday. This brings the total number of people diagnosed with the MERS virus to 186. Officials say the 50-year-old woman probably contracted the virus from her husband, who was infected while staying at the Samsung Medical Center in southern Seoul on May 27th and 28th. Now, according to the Health Ministry, he tested positive on June 12th, but was released from hospital last Friday. Of the 186 people diagnosed with the MERS virus so far, 37 remain in hospital and 12 are in critical condition. The MERS death toll, however, remains at 33. That's unchanged since last Tuesday. 116 people have been discharged from hospital following full recoveries. Now, Team Korea bagged 2 gold medals in Judo at the Gwangju Universiade on Sunday, bringing the country's gold medal tally to 4 after 2 days of competition. Kim Sung-yeon struck gold first in the women's under 70 kilogram event, beating Kazuki Osanai of Japan. Korea had finalists in all 4 weight classes for women, including Park Ji-yoon, who settled for silver in the under 63 kilogram category. Now, the second judo gold of the day came from Gwangju Han in the men's under 90 kilogram event. South Korea currently sits in 3rd place in the medal standings with 4 gold, 6 silver and 6 bronze medals. China and Japan are currently 1st and 2nd, respectively. Now, Team Korea's goal for this Universiade at the end of the day is 25 golds and a 3rd place finish, where they currently are. Our Kim Hyun-bin has this report on Korea's prospects from Gwangju.
Games have begun for the 2015 Gwangju Summer Universiade. Some 13,000 athletes from 149 countries are here to compete for the 272 gold medals up for grabs. Team Korea has sent its largest delegation ever, with 516 athletes and officials, partaking in all 21 sporting categories.
With the country's support and that of local residents, we'll do our utmost to win as much as we can.
Unfortunately for Korea, the nation's reigning Olympic champion gymnast Yang Hak-sun had to withdraw from the Universiade through injury over the weekend, after he pulled out of the floor exercise during the men's team event. Yang has been struggling with the same hamstring injury, which caused him to settle for silver at last year's Asian Games. Korea has done fairly well in past Universiades, coming 3rd overall in 2003 and 2011, and 4th overall in the last Universiade held in the Russian city of Kazan in 2013. With the home crowd behind them, Team Korea is aiming to win 25 gold medals this year and seal 3rd spot in the medal table. Team Korea must beat their arch rival Japan in the medal standings to have a chance of finishing 3rd overall. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News, Gwangju.
North Korea has slammed South Korea for a recent report on Pyongyang's appalling human rights record. The North state-run Nodong Shinmun newspaper says the white paper, which was released early this month, was a, quote, heinous provocation. It added that North Korea will exact merciless punishment on those who criticize the regime and its dignity. Now, last week, a report from the South state-run Korea Institute for National Unification said that North Korea publicly executed almost 1,400 people between the year 2000 and 2014. The North also denounced the recent opening of a UN Human Rights Office in Seoul yet again, and the South's warnings of harsher sanctions against Pyongyang. Now, more than a week into marathon nuclear talks with Iran, US Secretary of State John Kerry says difficult issues remain and negotiations could still go either way. Speaking in Vienna on Sunday after a series of meetings with Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif, Kerry said he wanted to be absolutely clear that while some progress was being made, several of the most critical issues had not yet been resolved. The United States, plus other world powers and Iran, are aiming to seal a deal by a self-imposed deadline of Tuesday. The deal, if reached, would be designed to curb Iran's nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief. Turkish nationalists protesting China's treatment of Uyghur Muslims attacked a group of Korean tourists in Istanbul over the weekend, mistaking them for Chinese nationals. AFP reports that hundreds of angry protesters marched towards the landmark Topkapi Palace, carrying flags representing the Uyghurs' homeland. The Korean tourists were attacked outside of the palace before they were rescued by riot police. Now, fortunately, none of the tourists were seriously hurt, but several were shaken up by what happened. Turkey shares linguistic and religious links with the Uyghurs, who have several community groups in the predominantly Muslim country. Samsung Electronics has been named the most reputable technology firm in the United States. According to US-based research firm Reputation Institute, the Korean tech giant made a huge leap last year because it was only ranked 8th in 2014. Big names like HP, Hewlett-Packard, Microsoft and Google were also in the top 10. Apple, however, only made it to 21st, dropping 2 slots from last year. The Institute ranks more than 25 companies based on a survey rating a firm's products, services, innovation, working environment, governance, leadership and management. Now, researchers in the United States have created a tiny self-folding robot that can transform itself on the spot to perform a variety of tasks and even, in some cases, vanish into nothing. Won Ji-yeon reports.
In just a matter of seconds, this two-dimensional object folds itself to become a mini robot. Then off it goes, zipping around on both land and water. Developed by researchers from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, this tiny robot starts out as a flat sheet of plastic. But when triggered by heat, it can fold itself thanks to a set of electromagnetic materials.
The robot has a shape memory polymer built inside, which coils up when it's heated. Using this material, the robot can fold itself by applying heat to its pre-creased edges.
The finished robot measures just over a centimeter from front to back, and although it weighs less than 1/3 of a gram, this tiny robot can run along designated trajectories, swim, and even carry objects that are twice as heavy as itself. What's even more revolutionary is that the robot operates by using magnetic pulses, so it doesn't need a battery. The robot also dissolves in acetone, so after doing its job, it can completely disappear, leaving only its magnet behind. Although the robot is still in its early stages of development, scientists are seeing great potential to apply the technology in the medical field, as a smaller version of the robot could be used as a surgical device that could dissolve inside the human body. Won Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Now, students from around the world gathered in Jecheon in Chungcheongbuk-do province last weekend to explore Korean humanities. The event, the 2015 Nonjangpan Festival, was hosted by the Korean Culture and Information Service and organised by Arirang TV, the channel you're watching right now. 30 teams comprised of university students from 36 countries competed in the event, giving presentations on figures in Korean history, with 13 groups making it to the final round. The winning team's presentation was on the life and achievements of Ho-jun, who was a doctor during the Joseon dynasty. The event, now in its second year, is aimed at enhancing the spirit of Korean humanities among young people. Well, that's all we have for now. I'm Mark Broome. Have a wonderful start to the week, and thank you as always for tuning in. And we do hope to see you at the same time tomorrow. Until then, goodbye.